You can introduce yourself,
Okay, I'm
Grandpa.
Lon Stolte. I'm Matthew's grandfather.
Sweet.
What do you remember doing as a child that the kids these days don't do anymore?
Well, the big thing, if you can ever visualize not having television. We never had any television, so we were always active. And depending on the age, mostly it was the typical sports back then was baseball, football, and basketball. But as a kid, those were the main ones. But we were always outside. Now, we always played pickup ball. We didn't need a special area. We could play in streets. We could play in, we had some vacant lots we played in, but we always have enough kids to play the game. And we chose up sides, played the game. Now, at all times when maybe my brother and I and another friend, we didn't have a baseball, we usually managed to find a baseball bat. But we played cork ball. That's where you use a broomstick and the old bobbers for fishing. And try to hit a bobber with the broomstick when we use that. And then there was the other games, kick the can, ante over, all of this stuff.
The class.
So there was a lot of things, but we were always outside, always outside. That's why I have skin cancer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you mentioned a few sports. Did you play any sports when you were growing up?
Oh yeah, in high school, played football, basketball.
And how do you think these sports have changed since your youth?
When I first started, of course, in grade school, if you can visualize this, the type of weather we had, cold, ruddy ground, and that's where we played basketball, practiced. And occasionally we were lucky in that games were played indoors, so it was quite a change when you practice from outdoors to indoors. Now that's in grade school. High school we had the regular gymnasiums and that. What's changed, I was only, my oldest brother, he graduated in 1945. And if you look at maybe some of the old movies, the free throws were shot under like this. There was no jump shot.
Yeah, I've seen them.
They were shot underneath, and then the set shots were two-handed set shots. So that didn't change till the late 40s. My next brother then, he graduated in 50, and they were shooting set shots then, and hook shots and that. So the game has changed. The scoring, the scoring was really low on my older brother. You know, they were lucky to get up to 30 points a game. So it's a lot of defense and that. But the game has changed. I mean, the rules have changed and all that because you shot free throws. You didn't just take every time you got fouled, you shot.
Yeah.
But kids are faster nowadays. You can say they're basically taller, although the team, that high school team I played on, I was not the tallest guy. There were a couple taller than me. And every center I played against was taller than I was, so they were big kids back then too.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the ones I played. I played baseball, but not in high school.
What was the most significant difference between like kids or like adolescents these days, like teens, and then what compared to like teens when you were back in?
Boy, that's hard to. I know in our high school there wasn't, and I don't know today, some schools do, some don't. The drug situation today, I don't think we heard too much about that back then. Drinking, there wasn't, in our school there wasn't much drinking, or there wasn't any, really. What else? I guess it'd basically be, fairly similar.
Yeah.
Although the kids, I think, had to, more in the summer, they probably worked more. Kids had to work, make money, that type of thing.
Where did they generally work?
Well, I can give you mine. You either had, you had paper routes, you had one or two paper routes. One of my best ones was caddying, which of course they don't have, now they have the carts and all that stuff. Caddying back then was very good paying. Detasseling corn. I can go on, but there's several of them. And working the bowling alleys, you know, now they have automatic bowling alleys, but back then you had pin setters, so you had to set the pins. What else?
You got paid for that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
You had to stand in the middle and make sure that you were in the right lane and didn't drop before, you know, the ball came down and that. And you had to get out of the way because those pins come flying around back there. So. But there were several of those things in addition, but then we had a lot of time to spend in the summer with sports.
So when did you first start thinking about what you want to do for a living?
Well, in the Korean War was going on at the time. Of course, we had the draft was on then, so you knew you had to spend time in service. They were pushing engineering back then, and of course, my thing in high school was mainly math. I wanted to get in something in math. I wanted to get something where you could have a job potential. And I started considering engineering probably about my senior year in high school. And went into electrical engineering because that had more math than any other engineering. So I went into electrical engineering.
Oh, good old E's.
But it was a senior year. And the big difference back then and now, we never had, you have more advanced classes now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we never had calculus at all back in high school back then. Although I think we had more of the other basics than you guys get, but we, history and that type of stuff. But
Yeah.
What was your favorite memory about like the 20s, when you were 20 and 30?
20 and 30, my favorite memories, believe it or not, well, some of my best experience was in the military service. I was married then, spent the first 2 years, and I had a terrific duty, and we had a great time. I was stationed in Virginia. We had a good time out there. We had one child at the time, and then I came home for a year of work, and then I got recalled into service, so we spent that year in Georgia. We had 2 kids at that time, but those were some good years. And the other time was just with the family and fishing and that type of stuff back there, traveling.
Do you remember what you were doing when Kennedy was shot?
Working.
Working? Or were you working?
Working at, well, back then it was Sperry Rand, Univac, and we had heard it. I think I was in the cafeteria at the time when somebody came in and said Kennedy got shot. And then I remember coming home that afternoon. Well, then they let us know that he had died then too. And I was coming home. We had stopped at the bank in Newport down here, and it was kind of a dreary day, if I remember. But anyway, I was at work that day. But I have more vivid memories of other history. Like I said, World War II, and I was only 6 years old then. Believe me, I remember it.
Do you remember like Pearl Harbor then? Or?
Yeah, Pearl Harbor, and the whole war. And I was a young kid, but I still.
What was so significant about Pearl Harbor? How was like the country even?
Well, a lot of people didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was. One thing.
Yeah.
You have to realize back then,
Yeah.
people never traveled. We never had the highways. You know, that didn't come till the Eisenhower administration in the 50s. The freeways and that. People couldn't, you know, we had Model A's, you couldn't travel too far. My grandmother, one of them lived 13 miles away, and that was a pretty good trip because you had muddy roads to go through. You didn't have paved roads, that type of thing. So people didn't get around and travel unless they were in service, and then they enjoyed it. But Pearl Harbor was significant only because, you know, at that time and on the draft, and they drafted so many, and there wasn't a place you could go without people that didn't have kids in service at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the windows, of course, they had the flag with the star. And any of them that were killed, they put a gold star in for the ones that died. Otherwise, they had the regular star. And I knew a lot of guys that were in service, even though I was a young kid then. Well, I was 10 years old when the war ended. But my brother, oldest brother, was a senior in high school. 45, and of course he enlisted probably in January. The minute he graduated, he went right into service. Well, fortunately, the war in Europe had ended in May, And then the war in the Far East ended in August, so he didn't have to serve at the time. But.
That's good.
And then, 5 years later, the Korean War, and that was very significant too at the time.
It's very awesome.
No, what was your like favorite era to live through, like 50s or 60s?
Favorite what?
Era? Like 50s and 60s.
I really enjoyed high school, I guess, only because, I wasn't working. When you get out and work in the real world and you start hitting college, you got a whole different ballgame. But I don't know. It was all good. Had a good time in high school and then out of high school. Yeah, it was fun.
What did you do for a living while you were still working? Obviously, you're retired now, but.
Yeah, I went. I was in computers with. Well, it was originally Univac, Sperry Rand, and then Unisys. I was with them 34 years, and believe me, you wouldn't believe what the computers looked like back then. We had vacuum tubes. You guys probably never heard of a vacuum tube. And went all the way up in the different memories in the computer. So it's just fantastic. Biggest computer we had probably back then is equivalent to your pocket calculator, and that computer took up a room of vacuum tubes, power supplies, and so.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's fantastic. And it's another thing, you guys wouldn't have any idea on going to college without calculators, computers and that. Well, we had a slide rule.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane.
What luxuries do you have now that you never thought you would ever like exist?
Believe it or not, when I was in high school, I thought it'd be great to have a car. I mean that's the expectations then.
Yeah.
Then I thought a house would be real nice to have a house. And it's amazing. You have no idea what it's like now compared to back then. My grandmother, we'd go out to her farm. No electricity. They had the lamps. Of course, the outdoor biffs. You had that water to pump, and that's how those people lived. Although just at the start of the war, they started the rural electrification. So then they got this stuff. Yeah, the modernization. The phone, you had the crank phone. If you wanted to dial somebody, you had 2 dots or 2 shorts, and the short and long, and then everybody would jump on the phone if they heard a ring, because everybody was on the line. You might have 15 people on. Well, if they all got on the line, you couldn't hear, so you had to yell and everybody get off the line so that you could go. These types of changes. And then TV, nobody knew what TV was. We had the radio was great. At Sunday night you'd listen to the Green Hornet or the Shadow or Hopalong or somebody. These are different things that you guys would have a hard time. The old phonograph record, you know what
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
78, 40, or I don't know, yeah, 78 I guess. But
That's crazy. All right. Well, if you could change one thing that's happened in your life, what would it be?
the only thing that I regretted, I shouldn't say regretted, but I would have changed would have been when I was in service the first 2 years. I was at Arlington Hall in Virginia, and I was offered a civil service job, stay right in there, and I didn't stay. I wanted to stay out there, and I came back here and worked. Otherwise, that's the only thing I would have changed. I would have stayed out there because I love Virginia.
Yeah.
And I like the work I was doing.
But what doesn't the idea of death mean to you? And is it just considered a stepping stone to something greater, or?
I would say, yeah. You can't sit here and linger on it. Everybody's going to die. That's the one thing you're not going to. The only thing I look at, I'm not afraid to die. I just don't want to suffer when I go. That's all. But yeah, it's inevitable. But it doesn't bother me.
Well, how do you want to be remembered when you end up passing away? If your grandkids and
Well, I tell you how all the guys I know, they remember me as a staunch conservative. But no, I don't know. Good family man. I guess that's all I'd say.
well, yeah, I guess that's about all we got. We start out at the beginning of life and ended in Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, that was quick.
Yeah, that was a lot faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Just explain, I guess, where you got that and how it came to how you got that.
I was about 9 years old, and I ended up writing to my neighbor who was over in Europe in World War II.
Mhm.
And he told me, just keep writing, and when he gets back, he'll bring me some souvenirs. And he ended up bringing me this German bayonet as one item.
That's crazy. What else did you get? You said you got some.
What do you call them? Pins, the German,
The swastika.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool.
yeah.
That's really cool.
And then he brought, like I said, he brought German flag and, oh yeah, I think he had Luger too. The Luger was probably the biggest thing in demand over there. The little pistol, German pistol.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't their best pistol, but it's the one that everybody wanted because it was so, it goes back to like the early 1900s when, the pistol itself.
That's crazy. All right, well.
But they all brought back whatever they could. Usually they couldn't bring back rifles and that stuff, but
Yeah.
they were able to get some of them out.
Or they just sneak them in their bags and you just take them right from the German soldiers.
Yeah, and well, they had to. They had to disarm them.
Yeah.
You
Or
know.
if would they take them just from soldiers that they saw on the street dead?
Oh,
Or-
yeah. If they were dead, they would take the, and then of course when the war ended, the Germans just had to take it off and throw it in piles. And
Yeah.
some of these guys tried to sneak them out.
That's insane. Alrighty. That's, I guess. Yeah. Recording.
All right. What should we talk about first?